America's Cold War, Chapter 1, The Demise of Free Security, Part 6. These problems weighed on the president's mind as he, Stalin, and Churchill met for a final time at the Crimean resort town of Yalta in early February 1945. By this time, the European war was almost over, and the projection of both American and Soviet power into the European continent was a geopolitical fact. Roosevelt's health, meanwhile, was in rapid decline. He was a dying man, and he knew it. But he also knew that he faced a grim choice at Yalta. He could confront Stalin on economic integration, Poland, and the Security Council veto, with the aim of achieving a real post-armistice collective security order. Or he could avoid these hard questions and instead aim to maintain friendly relations with Stalin, in the hope that somehow things would work out. The president was able to get Stalin to sign the Declaration on Liberated Europe, a statement that the victorious powers would respect national sovereignties and human rights. The conspicuous absence of any enforcement mechanism behind this declaration, however, ensured that few, least of all Stalin, took the statement seriously. Fundamentally, Roosevelt chose the second course of action, and in doing so, left for the future the task of securing a workable arrangement. Why did FDR, at the moment of imminent victory over Nazi Germany, relent on issues he believed central to the establishment of a genuine and enduring post-war peace? For the remainder of the century and beyond, the mantra among many on the right was that Yalta represented a sellout, an abandonment of principle by an American president who ended his presidency preferring a cordial and superficial summit conference to over confrontation with a Soviet aggressor clearly bent on expansion and hostility. Perhaps, some of the critics have allowed, his failing health entered into the equation. He may simply have been physically unable to face the prospect of turning the summit into a power struggle with Stalin. But a simpler and better explanation for Roosevelt's behavior holds that the only way he could compel Stalin to accept integration into the American economic order, relinquish his grip over Eastern Europe, and abandon the Security Council veto was to threaten him with war. In early 1945, FDR simply had no other plausible means of persuasion. The Soviet leader had already shown that he could not be bought off by an American loan. The war against Hitler was reaching its end, and though American and British forces were moving steadily through France and into Germany, the Red Army was also advancing swiftly from the other direction. By this point, therefore, all hopes of using the Second Front as a lever to coerce Stalin into compliance had disappeared. There was the atomic bomb, but the scientists at Los Alamos had not yet finished it. And even if they had, a threat to destroy Moscow unless Stalin changed his tune would have almost certainly failed to impress him. At Yalta and after, Roosevelt continued to profess that perhaps the ideal of post-war cooperation and peace would convince Stalin to change his behavior. Perhaps Stalin was still wedded to the ideal of a grand alliance. A few American and British military figures, including General George S. Patton, raised the possibility of attacking the USSR, perhaps even by joining forces with the Germans. But this was never in the cards. Neither the American nor the British public would have accepted such a campaign, which would certainly have meant many more years of fighting the largest army in the world, with untold thousands of casualties. Hitler's failed expedition recalled what Napoleon had learned a century and a half before, that invading Russia was a fool's game in the best of times. In 1945, with the victorious Red Army implanted throughout Eastern Europe, it would be a taller order still. Furthermore, the very idea of turning on an ally after 4 years of fighting together was close to inconceivable to most American officials, including Roosevelt and Supreme Allied Commander Eisenhower, and to an American public eager to bring the boys home. Added to all that, the war against Japan remained to be won. No, a war to force the USSR to accept an American peace was not an option. To achieve his post-war vision, Roosevelt, in early 1945, had no recourse but to try to cajole Stalin into joining America in an idealistic new order. That, too, was a losing cause. and the president, mindful of Wilson's experience and nearing his death, did not pursue it. End of chapter 1.